Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to Southland's Parenting Podcast, where we're impressing upon our children what must be first impressed upon us, because you can't give what you don't have. I am here today with two people who have far surpassed me in podcasting prowess. You guys are real pros.
True.
Did you catch all
You
the
got 5
alliteration
years.
there?
It's a lot of P words.
You guys, a lot of P words.
done.
5 years just with the locker room, and you've done some other ones.
I have done some other ones, but I feel like you guys are more consistent than me. So I'm happy to be joined by you guys today. Jessica, Scott.
I feel so much pressure right now.
Yeah, that's the intent. I want to get everybody real worked up and nervous.
Right.
Yeah.
So here we are. And we've done, I don't know how many of these have we done, 3 or 4, something like that. So we're on like 4 or 5, something like that.
Yeah.
So as we're recording this, it's like early November. And so we wanted to get together today, talk a little bit about prayer, okay?
Yeah.
And how we pray for our kids. And I wanted to kind of set this up by just a realization I had kind of recently. I've got 4 kids. This is a well-timed podcast, by the way, because I had to do something as a parent last night that I actually haven't done in a long time. We had a puking kid, so I won't touch you guys.
Nice.
I've washed a million times and everything. I know. It's actually the thing I fear in life, literally more than anything, is throwing up. I hate it.
I hate it too.
I hate
I
it
will
with
fight it till the death.
white hot passion. And so Bo woke us up at 2 a.m. It's never at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's always
know.
at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
He's 10. He threw up every hour on the hour, so I'm on like zero sleep, that kind of thing. And Allie and I hadn't done the like tag team thing in the middle of the night with the
It's been a
puke and
while.
who gets the sheets and who gets the kid. And here's the other thing. We have these newfangled water heaters that I don't know where we got them from, some communist nation somewhere, where you have to put this dial of hours during the day where it won't heat the water.
Really?
Yeah, it's like some cost-saving mechanism or some nonsense like that. I can't just say, hey, I'm an American who wants hot water
All the time.
whenever I want it.
That'd be cool.
So when it's time to put him in the tub or whatever at 2 o'clock in the morning, we got nothing but ice cold water
Are you
for this
serious?
boy. Yeah,
poor
who's
kid.
so we couldn't do that. So we're like telling him off. Also, he is really into Legos. So his floor in his room is covered in Legos.
A landmine.
Yeah.
He puked in the Legos, and it's not like he puked in the random Legos that are he puked in like this world he's created that he wanted to preserve. So I literally found myself last night picking Legos out of vomit and so that we could preserve them. And so there you go, parenting. There's parenting for you. Yeah, it's the worst.
Thanks for that.
I hate throwing up more than anything. So we're all braced. We're braced. Oftentimes, what hits the kids doesn't hit the adults, or vice versa, in our home at least. So that's
you
the
are
hope.
lucky, my friend.
Well, it hadn't always been that way.
I've had a lot of stuff in my hair, and it's disgusting.
Yes, yeah. So we'll see how that turns out. But here's my realization lately. I've got a 20-year-old, I've got a 17-year-old, I've got a 14-year-old, and a 10-year-old. So I've had 2 that have become drivers. You've had 1 that's become a driver. You'll be there one day. What I've noticed is not what everybody would obviously expect is you're going to pray about that. Of course I do.
Sure.
What I felt convicted by was the fact that I noticed I pray more for those kids that are driving. And it's because I'm just literally thinking about, man, they're driving. I'm watching them on their Life 360 or whatever that may be. So I pray more for those kids now because they're driving. Or also at the same time, I've got Eli, who's, as we're recording this, getting ready to play in his 11th football game of his senior season. And so I always pray a few things before football games, but the primary one is God keep all these boys safe, and then a specific prayer for Eli to keep him safe. And so what I've noticed in that, and those are not bad prayers at all, but if it takes something like that to drive me to my knees more to pray for my kids, maybe I should pay attention to that. And then also there's a consistent thread of praying for my kids' safety. Again, not a bad thing, but can tip into the form of like an ultimate thing or even an idol.
They're comfort.
They are comfort things. And so what I've been wrestling through is do I pray as much for my children, and their relationship with Jesus, and then the other things that I want to get into with you guys today about what are those things that as parents we need to be praying for our kids, and what we pray for our kids tends to reveal what's really important to us and what's priority. So when you guys think about how you pray for your kids, when you pray for your kids, and what you pray for your kids. What are some of those things that kind of come to mind?
Yeah.
Well, so my kids are still littler than your all's. So we're in like that foundational stage where like Ashlyn not too long ago was talking about wanting to be baptized, things like that. She was asking questions about Jesus and all the things that she was hearing. And we've talked about how my kids are in a Christian school. So I do think those conversations are maybe a little simpler sometimes because they will bring them up instead of the opposite. But anyway, when we're praying with them, a lot of times Chuck and I are going, we want to make sure that as you grow, your relationship with the Lord grows as well. So we've always been pretty vocal about that. And so now they pray those things. Like last night, Ella was saying her prayer, which are for a 5-year-old, they're cute and they make no sense, but it's really sweet. But she was like, and I pray that when I go to school tomorrow, everybody loves you because you love us. So I'm like, okay, well, we're doing okay because right now that's the focus. Now, as things get harder, and like Ashlyn, especially where she's starting to kind of transition into being closer to the preteen stage and stuff like that, things are starting to take more of her focus. But we started early on by making sure that the first thing we pray for with them was, we want you to know the Lord, so pray that you know how much he loves you and how much we love you too.
Sure.
Which is easier, I think, when they're little because we don't have things like driving that I'm as worried about, so they're not as pressing on my mind. I do also pray for safety, though, often at school.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, even what you were just saying, as they get older, the stakes are higher. They're less around you and under your care. And so it moves our minds toward things like their friendships or their dating relationships or their decisions or their purity or driving or playing tackle football with other pretty sizable young men, and so the stakes just get higher. A consistent prayer, and I've already said this on a previous episode in this parenting podcast, has been, for me, it's just been the overarching prayer, which is, God, help my girls to become dangerous women who fall in love with you, who walk with you all the days of their life. And then the second part of that prayer is just about mission. God, would you move them where you want them to go? Would you use them how you want to use them? Would you help them to speak and be and become the people that you want them to be and make their lives count for you? That's been our consistent prayer. I pray for safe schools. Good grief, just watch the news. There's enough shootings and enough targets for Christian kids and Christian schools and just kids that don't have dads or are angry or don't have outlets and don't have good mental health. And so obviously those things can happen. But what I've started thinking about a little bit more is I want them to be safe. But here more recently, probably a story with Everly. She's on the volleyball team. A month before volleyball, she was pumped about it. Never played volleyball. Volleyball's a good sport. If you've never played, it's not like she's in 6th grade. It's not like kids have been playing volleyball for 6 years like they do in soccer. And so I'm going, this is great for her. This will be fun for her. Girls sports, team sports, these are great things. Well, it kind of got away from us as we related to thinking about, well, we probably need to help her get more comfortable because she's never played. She's pretty athletic. She may be my most athletic kid in my whole family, And so leading up to this point, we went on vacation for fall break, and then I thought, man, maybe I'll get a volleyball and we'll just hit it in Florida and we'll leave the volleyball. We didn't. And so the week of, she finds out one of her friends is not going to join the team, not going to try out. And so she starts backing up. And her nature is to be afraid of new things. I haven't done this before. And by the way, she's never done it. So there's enough reason to be nervous about it. And so literally Friday night, Sarah puts her to bed, and I run to Walmart to get a science fair board at 10:20 at night. And I get
Is there
home,
like an aisle for that? Like science fair boards?
Well, it took a minute. Yeah, just look for poster boards. It's my but anyway, so I get home, and we're in it this week. We're finishing up. But I get home, and Sarah's like, hey, she doesn't want to do it. She had a meltdown. She's not going to do it. And I'm like, no, hold on. Yeah. Hold on. And in my mind, I'm going, I know enough about her to know why she doesn't want to do it. Her friend's not going to do it. She's fearful of it, and it's something she's never done. And so the next morning we get up, and I'm trying to pray through this, and I want to do this in the right way, and I want to make sure that this is something that is memorable. And so I get up and said, hey, it's about 9. I said, hey, in about a half hour, we're gonna get our clothes on. We're gonna run to Dick's. You're gonna get some knee pads, and we're gonna get a volleyball, and then we're gonna go swing by Chick-fil-A, and then we're gonna go up to church because it's cold and it's wet, and we're just gonna practice for about an hour and a half because you're gonna try out. And she was like, okay. And so, and what was interesting was while we tried out, or while she was hitting with me, there was a couple times she messed up. She's like, sorry. I'm like, hey, listen, we just went to a game the other day. You saw a high school team. They don't hit the ball in the net every time. It's no big deal. And as we're hitting, I'm just encouraging her. And then there are moments where I'm going, she really has never played before. And I'll just pause and go, hey, listen, for somebody who's never played before, it's impressive to see how good you are. And I'm not falsely doing that. I really mean that. And so then we drive over to the school, and I said, hey, listen, here's the deal. I really don't care if you make it. I really don't. But what I do care about is I don't want you to be bullied by fear. And I don't want you to be afraid of trying new things. God's going to be with you. Here's the deal. When you go in there, just do your best. Be teachable. Listen well. If the ball gets away from you, hustle after it. Act like you want to be there. And so she ends up making the team. And part of that prayer, for her, I know that tendency of hers to be afraid, to be fearful. And some of our kids can be that way. And I had, Nate Head on about raising boys, and he talked about one of his sons, and that 2 Timothy 1:7 passage where it says he didn't give us a spirit of fear. And so trying to pray some of that scripture over my child that way, specifically for her, because I know that it is an obstacle. And man, I want her to know that, hey, we're just going to do it afraid. It's okay, And so that's a little thing more recently for me.
Yeah, that's a great example, because I think as a parent, it's very easy to get caught up in praying for certain things. Like we want to see them be successful, in sports or in school. We want to see them make enough money. We want to see them, get married, but what we can fail to sometimes do is push beneath the surface to something like that, to go, my prayer is far less that my daughter makes the team in this instance than it is give her the courage to move towards something scary and then let her learn from that experience one way or the other. So for us, some of the things that we've, spent a lot of time praying about is, who is out there somewhere right now who's probably going to be the person that one of your children marries. You've got one that's married. And so I pray a lot about whoever those people are and what's going on with them right now, and ask for their protection, their purity, all those kinds of things, that they would be growing in their relationship with Jesus, so that when their life intersects with one of my kids' lives, that, they're hitting, running into each other at a moment where it's going to be great for them to be running towards Jesus together. So praying those kind of prayers. The other thing about, scary prayers is, you pray those things and then you see them start to materialize in your kids. I've got one who's, she's saying, she wants to spend significant amounts of time on the mission field. It's like, this is when, pastor dad gets to put his money where his mouth is, because it's like,
I've live a life of faith.
I've called people to this. I've demonstrated this. I've taken her with me on mission trips. I don't know what else I thought I was going to get.
You
but
moved her out of uncomfortable scenarios all the time.
That's right. And there is a deep breath moment when you realize, okay, that means you may be going places without me, and
see her less.
Beyond my control, may not could see as much, and wouldn't it be great to have you right down the street? And sure, but there's something bigger going on. And that's so awesome. I do think as parents, a lot of times we find ourselves counterintuitively, there's so much wrapped up in it. It's like we pray for safety and ease. And we know intuitively that that's not the way God shapes people. God tends to shape people through difficulty and hard. And so, but it's almost an impossible prayer to say, put my child in a difficult situation. It's like, oh man, I just want to see him succeed. I want to see him do well. But at the same time, I know how God forms us in the fire. But at the same time, I'm not going to necessarily ask for the fire.
It's like you should never pray for patience. Because you're not just going to suddenly have patience. You're going to be put in situations to learn
what
patience.
You pray for.
I
think sometimes in parenting, especially in the American culture, is we parent them toward what we want them to do that will make them happy and healthy. and wealthy. And the bottom line is we really don't have a whole lot of control over that. And we can force them into our own image, and that's really problematic. And so what we have to do from our standpoint as parents is to show them Jesus, to model Jesus, to help them create a family faith, and then help them invest toward this personal faith where he then dictates for them and drives them and moves them and prompts them to go those places. And so I don't have great plans for my kids after they graduate. I don't know what they're going to do, but I entrust them to him, and my prayers that they would be so available and that they would begin to know God more and more, and that he would put them in the right situations or the right settings, or this right trip here, or that, these things at the block that Landry's gotten to do, or maybe Eli's gotten to do. Those things are so formative because they begin to see the world outside of themselves, and they go, man, I didn't know that I could make a difference. I didn't know that I could help in this way. I didn't know that God, this is actually ministry. And and when we put them in uncomfortable situations, or we just bring them along when we're trying to serve people at times, it gives them a greater understanding of what God wants to do or is doing, and that he may invite them into, So
what's it look like when you start to see, both at a young age, at an older age, that kind of thing, you start to see some things going on in your child's life that you're going, it's not good. They're making unwise decisions, or a character flaw starts to get revealed, which often is a character flaw that's like a real big mirror, like right back at
Where'd
us.
you get that?
Where'd that come from?
Wait.
Even the way my son was throwing up last night, because he's a real loud thrower-upper. I'm a real loud thrower-upper.
I resist it too, and then when it comes.
My wife was like, he gets that from his father, wakes up the whole house, like, if I'm up, everybody's up, Yeah. But they are like a mirror looking back at us. So those moments along the way where you guys have seen things that in your children's lives where you're going, man, I don't like where that's headed or where that's going, and this could be painful if this doesn't get course corrected. Because my temptation is to try to change the child. My temptation is to try to control the child, manipulate the outcome. But the older those kids get, the more impossible that becomes, and the higher the stakes get.
Yeah.
So what I've seen in my own life is like this, me trying to control going down, and me just on my knees before the Father going up, going, dear God, please do what only you can do in their life. How's that looked for you guys?
Do you have any in your kiddos' younger ages? Do you have any semblance? I'm sure you do.
I do. I don't know that they're drastic. It is more character things.
Just banged that.
Wasn't me this time.
Come
though.
on, man! You're a professional podcast.
Sorry about that. I apologize for the
technical difficulty.
Yeah. We had a phone go off in our last Tell Me More podcast, so it was great. We just kept rolling. It was great.
Pizza or something?
Yeah, no, I wish, but no. So it's mostly character based right now. Where we'll see the fear that you talk about, I definitely have seen, and it makes me nervous because I don't want them to think, if I can't do it perfectly, which this is maybe a bigger topic, but I see this a lot in kids.
If I can't do it perfectly, don't do it at all.
Right, at all.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if you don't ever try, you're never going to know.
Yeah.
You'll never know what you're good at.
Yeah.
I talk with young adults about dating. I'm like, if you don't ever try to even talk to this person, just go on a date, you're never going to know what you're looking for in a spouse, like just stuff like that. And I see that in my kids where they're just afraid to try anything, and it's just utter failure when they don't get it perfect the first time. And I'm just like going, that if we all put that pressure on ourselves, can you imagine how we would feel?
You'll never do anything.
Right.
You'll
Exactly.
never do a thing.
Exactly. But I also have to, like you said, look at myself, and my husband has to look at himself, and we go, okay, are we modeling that somewhere? Is that just what they're seeing in their friendships and relationships? Yeah. Do we need to fix something first? So I think it's both and, because we're praying to have anything, like examine my heart, and if there's something in my heart that I need to fix, let me fix it. Like, tell me what it is. I will do it. But also it's modeling for them and talking through things for them. Like Ashlyn will always go, is there a time you got in trouble when you were a kid? And I'm like, no, I was angelic. But
shine that halo real quick.
Right. Or is there a time you tried something and you didn't do it well? And I'm like, oh, I got so many stories. Right. Yes. Yeah. But I still tried. And some of those things you just work real hard at and you get good at them.
Yeah.
But not letting that fear take root and allowing them to know that their identity isn't in those things anyway.
Correct.
that's where I see it most at this age with
you're
my kids.
Free to fail.
Yes, absolutely.
That is a very difficult road, especially for certain personality types, where it's like I either want to be awesome at something or I don't want to try it at all.
Yep.
And that's a tough bridge to walk down.
Yeah.
I have to tell my youngest, hey, you didn't get all the gifts. Like I've mentioned this about her. Like we can be watching Survivor or Bear Grylls, and every single time she goes, I can do that. I mean, it's if the world had her confidence.
Yeah.
I mean, and I look back on my own life, and I've had to say this with Evie, even in the situation with volleyball. But like I wasn't. They're getting the best version of us for the most part. Not that they don't get a perfect version, but they're getting a confident version of us now. Were we that way? Of course not. Were there leadership characteristics in us? Yeah, maybe in some places. But were there character defaults or defects? Absolutely. Yep. And so trying to help her understand, hey, listen, I got nervous about this too, or this happened, or hey, I didn't get this job several. I mean, not making the volleyball team, there just are things where you're going to try out relationships. You're going to try out dating relationships. You're going to eventually sit down and interview for a job. You're going to try to figure out what school you're supposed to. Yeah. You're going to have to communicate. Like she doesn't like to communicate up front. You know, she's had a little bit of public speaking, and so. Yeah. Man, that's so scary. I hated that.
Yeah. Welcome to what most of the world fears more than death.
That.
Yeah, that's right.
I hated that. I would take zeros, and I'm going, now this is what we do.
Yeah.
You just have to push. And the reality, whether you see Simone Biles on gymnastics or you see some other athlete, you go, hey, you know why she's that good? Yeah. Because she's worked really, really hard.
Fallen a bunch of times.
That's it. Yeah, that's huge. I think the other thing when it comes to the character stuff is I pray this a lot for all three of my kids is that they would hate sin, that they would hate what is evil, that they would cling to what is good, that if they're caught, that they would feel the conviction of the Holy Spirit. If there's moments where I need to release part of my story in a way that makes sense for them, I want to make sure that I do that. But I want them to love truth. I want them to be able to discern truth from lies. And they live in a culture that's so different than when we grew up.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I'm the oldest of us, but it's so different now. Yes. And wanting them to be able to really locate, man, that's not of God, or that's not his best, or that's not his intentions, or these weren't originally how he had that plan for us. And so because of that, I can see it glaring. It's like when you tell someone, you know, who pays attention to money, it's like they have to look at the real thing to be able to discern the counterfeit. God, would you just help them love your word? I've got an older daughter, and she's an avid reader, and I love that. And I love that we all want to read. But I love books, but man, God, would you just break my heart most importantly for your book and your truth and what you want to say to us more than anything else, whatever's going on, whatever we're listening to, whether it's TV or media or screens or social media. Man, would you just help us to long and hunger for your word and your truth in our lives?
Yeah, one of the things I pray is that, you know, when they mess up, make mistakes, and they, you know, step outside of wisdom and move into foolishness, you know, it's like those are the kind of the two categories in Proverbs, you know, there's wise and there's fool, you know, wise, wisdom and foolishness, is that they'll turn sooner rather than later, and that they'll be responsive to the consequences of that foolishness and move back to wisdom, because I know God is faithful, and He'll keep pursuing. And I don't like watching those consequences happen and those things unfold. But I also know that that's the means that God often uses to draw back His kids. You know, so you think of the prodigal son. It's like, man, it would have been better if he would have said after day one, yeah, this is a bad use of my time. I was a big jerk to my dad. I should probably go on home. But he didn't, you know. Or
he could have ran to where that kid was and found him at these parties or whatever he was doing and going, hey, man, before it gets too bad, come on home. And he doesn't. And we have to figure out ways, in the right ways, to let them struggle and let them learn and let them fail and let them know that, hey, the road home is really easy or repentance is really, really simple. And how we meet them is also important, because we should be that same reflection of how God meets us.
That's very true. That's very true. So when a child comes to you, you know, in that moment of brokenness, or revealing something that's going on, how you respond in that moment is really significant, because you'll either teach that child to hide, run, and shame, or you'll teach that child that you are a place that they can go to find forgiveness and peace and grace. Even if there's still going to be consequences, they know that you're not going to shame them is really, really key and important. I kind of wanted to land this podcast with a little bit of a Bible study. I didn't warn you guys about this, and so this will be a lot of fun. Cool. But there's this story in 1 Samuel, about this woman named Hannah that is just a really powerful story, because the posture that she takes, I think, is something that all parents can learn from, and it's a radical posture, and we were laughing before because I've got all these, and I've referenced them before, but all these ultrasounds of all my kids that stay right here in this story. So I'm going to read it to you guys, but along the way, just feel free to raise your hand, make comments, or just interrupt me, that kind of thing, and we'll do this. Okay, so there was a certain man from Ramathaim.
Nice, well done.
Yeah, there you go. I don't think I said it right, but I said it with confidence.
It's a long name on the back of the jersey.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. A Zophite from the hill country of Ephraim, whose name was Elkanah, son of Jehoram, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, the son of Zuph, of an Ephraimite. He had 2 wives. Big red flag.
I was just I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
Right out of the gate.
That's a dumb man.
We were just talking about wise and fool.
It's a dumb man.
Elkanah was a fool. All right, because he's got 2 wives, and that's foolish. One thing that needs to be said, that we talk about a lot around here, is the Bible. You must be able to distinguish between what is prescriptive and what is descriptive.
That's right.
This is not a prescription for polygamy. This is a description of a dummy.
What's going on? That's what was going on.
It's a description of a dummy named Elkanah. All right? He had 2 wives. One was called Hannah, and the other was called Peninnah. Peninnah had children, but Hannah had none. Consistent theme we see, especially through the Old Testament, of women that are barren that God chooses to use. Mm-hmm.
So much infertility in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
I mean, from the jump.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, right out of the gate. Year after year, this man went up from his town to worship and sacrifice the Lord Almighty at Shiloh, where Hophni and Phinehas, the 2 sons of Eli, were priests of the Lord. Whenever the day came for Elkanah to sacrifice, he would give portions of the meat to his wife Peninnah and to all her sons and daughters. So, I mean, she's got sons and daughters. She's just got babies, Yeah. But to Hannah, he gave a double portion because he loved her, and the Lord had closed her womb. And because the Lord had closed her womb, a rival kept provoking her in order to irritate her. Again, kind of a theme that we see through the Old Testament. Mm-hmm. This is the kind of brokenness you invite into your home when you're a dummy and you have 2 wives. Now you're creating bitterness and rivalry. Yeah. And so not only does this poor lady have to deal with the fact that she's unable to have children, she's got this rival to her that's just popping out a baby every year, it seems. Mm-hmm. And she's not shy about provoking her.
And even just the misconception about any sickness, illness, whatever, that it's something that you've done. It's a punishment.
Sure.
You or your parents.
That's right.
Whatever. So some sin.
This went on year after year. So we don't really get a timetable on that. I think
sounds like fun.
Yeah, it's painting a picture of just a grueling, heart-wrenching season that makes clear why the Psalms, one of the most often things we shout to God, is how long. And I imagine Hannah's singing that psalm, how long, O Lord? Whenever Hannah went up to the house of the Lord, a rival provoked her till she wept and would not eat. So, I mean, you got like a Mean Girls kind of thing going on here. Elkanah, her husband, would say to her, Hannah, why are you weeping? Why don't you eat? Why are you downhearted? Don't I mean more to you than 10 sons? And I think, the Bible's not often edited. Like, we get a really raw report, in the Bible. I mean, there's nothing sanitized typically. But I think the space between verse 8 and verse 9 might involve, So, Hannah, why are you weeping? Why don't you eat? Why are you downhearted? Don't I mean more to you than 10 sons? I can only imagine what the response should be, ought to be, could have been, and probably was.
The Lord knows.
Yeah, the Lord knows. There was some 4-letter responses probably to dummy Elkanah from Hannah.
What a dumb man.
What an idiot. I mean, sincerely. Yeah.
Sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it, but sometimes it's what you say.
Don't I mean more to you than 10 sons? No, actually.
Actually, you're kind of a moron.
I'd like to have just one son, and I'd trade him gladly for your dumb butt, All right. Once when they had finished eating and drinking in Shiloh, Hannah stood up. Now Eli the priest was sitting on a chair by the doorpost of the Lord's temple. Check this out. In bitterness of soul, Hannah wept much and prayed to the Lord. And she made a vow, saying, O Lord Almighty, if you will only look upon your servant's misery and remember me, and not forget your servant, but give her a son, that I'll give him to the Lord for all the days of his life, and no razor will ever be used on his head. So she does what a lot of us do. You know, she's trying to make a deal.
Yeah.
You know, like, God, if I do this, then if you do this, then I'll do that. You know, who among us has never done that before? I've done it many times.
Many times.
So as she kept on praying, so here we see her, she is a person who prays, you know. As she kept on praying to the Lord, Eli observed her mouth. Hannah was praying in her heart, and her lips were moving, but her voice was not heard. Eli thought she was drunk and said to her, how long will you keep on getting drunk? Get rid of your wine. The men in this story are just awesome, aren't they?
Priest.
She's
Man of the cloth.
Yeah, and she's at the place of prayer.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, it also shows you the context at the time of how deplorable the situation was. Like, we know his sons were worse than he was. But yeah, the men in this story are not knights in shining armor by any stretch of the imagination.
Couldn't even hear and just assumed.
Yeah, how long will you keep on getting drunk? Get rid of your wine. Yeah. Okay. Not so, my lord, Hannah replied. I'm a woman who's deeply troubled. I've not been drinking wine or beer. I was pouring out my soul to the Lord. Don't you feel bad, you big dummy. Do not take your servant for a wicked woman. I've been praying here out of my great anguish and grief. So thanks for making it worse. Eli answered, so at least he falls on his sword. Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant you what you've asked of him.
That's interesting. He doesn't even know what she's asked for.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was just kind of trying to clean up, lock up the doors.
Yeah. Like, my bad.
Yeah.
Whatever you're asking for, I'm sorry.
He's such an idiot.
Yeah.
Wasn't listening. Had no discernment.
She's respectful, though.
She is respectful.
There's a lot about her character and how she responds to that.
Dealing with
very much
terrible
so.
men.
Her posture is just impressive. Eli answered, go in peace. May the God of Israel grant you what you've asked of him. She said, may your servant find favor in your eyes. Then she went her way and ate something, and her face was no longer downcast. Interesting. She's poured it all out. You know, I mean, that is something to point to. Like, with whatever it is, there's a raw authenticity going on here that can be modeled to go, whatever it is. So, you know, pour it out to God. Yeah.
And how he changes your face when we do. When we get to sit in his lap and we pour out our heart and we tell him how we're doing. And we don't have to we don't have to change our words or pretend. We just
and her situation hasn't changed.
It hasn't. Nothing's changed other than her heart, because she's given this over again and again. Now she's in a spot where she just feels maybe God's peace in the midst of it.
Exactly.
So early the next morning, they rose, worshiped before the Lord, and went back to their home at Ramah. Elkanah lay with Hannah, his wife, so not sure how or why she allowed that to happen after him being a big dummy. Yeah. And the Lord remembered her. What a phrase. The Lord remembered her. We don't really get a picture. It just says, so in the course of time, Hannah conceived and gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, saying, because I asked the Lord for him. How about that? So when the man Elkanah went up with all his family to offer an annual sacrifice to the Lord and to fulfill his vow, Hannah did not go. She said to her husband after the boy is weaned, I'll take him and present him before the Lord, and he'll live there always. How about that?
Yeah, it's not just a prayer. I mean, we prayed that prayer before we had kids.
Yeah,
God,
we
give us
did
a
too.
child and we'll give him back to you.
We had that.
We didn't
verse.
mean immediately.
Right.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
Yeah, right now.
Yeah.
As soon as he's weaned.
As soon as he's eating like solid food.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Break out the baby food jars and it's time to go.
Yeah.
Do what seems best to you, Elkanah, her husband, told her. So he's real deferential now.
Of course.
You know, stay here until you have weaned him. Only may the Lord make good his word. So the woman stayed at home, nursed her son until she had weaned him. After he was weaned, she took the boy with her, young as he was, along with a 3-year-old bull, ephah of flour, and a skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh. When they'd slaughtered the bull, they brought the boy to Eli, this man of
Who thought she was drunk.
great sense. Yeah. Who better to raise my son?
And she's really trusting the Lord.
And she said to him, as surely as you live, my Lord, I am the woman who stood here beside you praying to the Lord. And here's the prayer. I prayed for this child. The Lord has granted me what I asked of him. Yeah. So now I'll give him to the Lord. For his whole life, he'll be given over to the Lord. And he worshiped Samuel, and he worshiped the Lord there. That's powerful.
Yeah.
And then she prays some more. So, and this is where we'll land, but I want to read this whole thing to you. Then Hannah prayed and said, my heart rejoices in the Lord. How about that? In the Lord my horn is lifted high, my mouth boasts over my enemies, for I delight in your deliverance. There is no one holy like the Lord. There is no one beside you. There is no rock like our God. You can start singing if you want to. Do not keep we're going to sing Living on a Prayer again here in a moment. Do not keep talking so proudly or let your mouth speak such arrogance, for the Lord is a God who knows, and by him deeds are weighed. The bows of the warriors are broken, but those who stumbled are armed with strength. Those who were full hire themselves out for food, but those who were hungry hunger no more. She who was barren has borne 7 children, but she who has had many sons pines away. The Lord brings death and makes alive. He brings down to the grave and he raises up. The Lord sends poverty and wealth, and he humbles and he exalts. He raises the poor from the dust. He lifts the needy from the ash heap. He sets them with princes and has them inherit a throne of honor. For the foundations of the earth are the Lord's. Upon them he has set the world. He will guard the feet of his saints, but the wicked will be silenced in darkness. It is not by strength that one prevails. Those who oppose the Lord will be shattered. He will thunder against them from heaven. The Lord will judge the ends of the earth. He will give strength to his king and exalt the horn of his anointed. And I love this phrase. Then Elkanah went home to Ramah, but the boy ministered before the Lord under Eli the priest. I mean, that's a powerful prayer, and she is a powerful woman. Yeah, it's impressive. I mean, what a beautiful response to, you've literally prayed for this child. God delivers on this promise. You give that child right back to the Lord. Yeah. And it is interesting that her perspective is not, and so I'm giving him to Eli.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's right.
I'm giving him to the Lord.
I'm trusting him.
Yeah, and then she just sings this song about how great God is. And I'm sure she cried all the way home.
No doubt.
Be my guess.
Full of joy. But, yeah.
I think there's there's many lessons, but also just thinking about how so young she was just like, he's yours. This kid belongs to you. I recognize that. I know that.
Yeah.
And we lose sight of that, and we are not leaving our children on the doorstep of the priests,
church.
Yeah. Please don't anybody drop off yours.
Right. No. That was not encouragement. But I just think it's interesting because we do tend to pray, like you were saying, for success, for financial success. It's not bad, but really God's already got the plan. He knows what's going to happen, and these kids are his. They're not ours.
Yeah.
And she knows that immediately. And we still forget so often. And we went through nothing nearly as dramatic as that.
And she's just right on the money with what reality actually is.
Yeah.
These kids belong to the Lord.
Exactly.
He loves them more than we do, believe it or not. And our goal as parents is to steward our time with them and to steward what we've been entrusted with and then turn them back over. She just did it a lot sooner than a lot of us did.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if, you wonder, did she know that Samuel would be great? Did she know that he would be significant in the kingdom? Did she know that he would be significant with David? I don't know.
Are you going to make up a song called Hannah, Did You Know?
I was about to make
Instead of Mary, Did You Know? My favorite song.
That's your baby.
Yeah. I've challenged Jess to write a song called Mary Knew. She knew. Yeah, the angel told her. Yeah. And we know that she knew.
When you see an angel, you get some pretty good insight.
I mean, yeah.
That's so funny.
You do see these powerful prayers by women. Man. Hannah, Mary's another great example. And so a real learn for us to be able to go, okay, assume that posture that any child that we're entrusted with is a gift. And a gift that we've been entrusted with, that we get to steward for a season, and then we turn them back over. And ultimately, they're God's kids.
Yeah.
And so, I'm sure that Hannah prayed and prayed and prayed some more, because obviously she's a woman who prays. Only imagine seeing Eli and his 2 wicked sons that he raises going, I just turned over my son to this dude who has these 2 jokers for sons. But Samuel ends up being one of the most powerful people we meet in all Scripture. Pretty impressive. So, any closing thoughts?
Buddy, we should be on our knees. And it's okay to pray God's word, and it's okay to give God our thoughts, and we don't have to have all the answers. We just constantly, in trusting them to Him. The Bible says in James, if you lack wisdom, you should ask. we're so incapable of doing this right, and so we just need him, and that's why prayer is so critical to who we are. And I mean, I think sometimes we go, I'll just pray these safe prayers, or I'll just pray, talk to God when we need him. And it's, you've mentioned this before too, but it's like we just practice the presence of God just throughout the day. And if something comes to mind, big or small, we bring it to him. He says, cast all your cares on me because I care about you. You don't have because you don't ask. If you ask this mountain to move, I mean, there's faith like a mustard seed. It's like, we don't even have to, help me believe. I believe, but help me. It's like, hey, he's that good. And he just wants us to be in communion with him on behalf of our kids and all of that. So
all day, every day. I remember, in cheesy church camp world, you'd have people pray and somebody'd say, you dial and I hang up. It's like, well, I don't know if we should be in the practice of hanging up on God. How about we just keep the line open all day?
Right. You still there?
Yeah, I've tended to take that posture. My prayer begins in the morning and goes until I fall asleep. It's just an ongoing conversation. And oftentimes that conversation is around my kids, and no one understands the aching heart of a father and a mother like our Father does.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Thanks for joining us on Southland's Podcast for Parents, Parenting Podcast. Whatever it is, we'll catch you next time. Peace.